back for almost all of time, there's only been two modes of leadership in the world. And this comes out of work by Douglas McGregor, who wrote a book called Theory X and Theory Y in the 60s. He presents this idea of human motivation in this very different light. He presents it as, like he literally says, in that book, he says, in all of human history, there's only been these two modes of leadership, force and authority. He says there's a third one emerging, but we really don't know what it is yet. And he wrote that in the 60s, and he was an eminent psychologist teaching at MIT. This is one of the smartest guys on the subject, and he's like, yeah, we're working on this, but it's new, because it was. I would say it's now identity is probably this other mode, leading from who you are and what you're all about. I learned today in another podcast I was listening to with someone who was a colleague of McGregor, that when he wrote this and he put it out into the public world, they actually got death threats, bomb threats. This idea that the nature of work had changed and that there's this new mode and that people want to actually work, that there's an inherent satisfaction that can come from work, was so revolutionary in the mid-60s that their office got bomb threats over it.
Wow.
Edward Deasy, who we quote a lot, was actually fired from a business department for making similar claims in the early 70s. So it's a new idea. We're not very good at it yet, although we're getting much better all the time. And it has threatened the status quo. So it's kind of a big idea.
Sure.
And it works something like this. If force and authority were the only modes of leadership in the past, then if you were like authority, okay, so Pharaoh was Pharaoh because Pharaoh was actually God. And that's super convenient. If you want authority, being God is probably the best source, at least in that
exactly.
area. Well, then we get rid of that and we go, okay, we don't do that anymore, so we go to monarchies. So now if you want to be the political leader of the region, of your kingdom, you get ordained by God, appointed by God, anointed by God. So God's still in the picture. But now we've got the priest has to come and put the crown on your head and do the, Onemos Padres, Diamos Diegos thing. And then all of a sudden you're the king. And
with the nice orchestra music in the back, right, from the mission playing.
It's always the case.
Epic.
But the authority is still from God, which pretty powerful place. So now you have the authority to be the ruler. In the democratic system, we changed everything, right? We're like, nope, that's wrong. We don't want to do that anymore. So we open up with the line that says all humans are created, well, not all. We know it wasn't all, but men are created equal and given inalienable rights by God, who then they get to pick their ruler.
Yeah.
So it's still this authority chain that comes from this divine place. So if you have that kind of authority and you have a big army, force.
So the badge and the gun.
Totally.
Yeah.
You can get kind of anything done. You can rule the land. If your army is bigger and you have more authority than the guy next door, you can rule his land too, and you can build an empire. And that's how we got everything done. In that world, external motivation was kind of the game. It's all we knew. They fit together. What McGregor and Deasy and Maslow and Drucker and those guys were writing about was there's something going on in our world where the nature of work is changing. And those modes of leadership are no longer enough. That there's this new thing emerging because we had to start understanding that humans, because the nature of work was changing, humans' motivation was changing, and it wasn't changing like into something new. There was something that had always been there that was emerging, and it mattered in how value got created. And they started to write about this new thing that was coming on board. I think it's largely being captured best right now in the word intrinsic motivation, or a sense of identity that comes from inside of us.